This happened a few nights ago, when I was hanging out with my friend, Simon. We both used to be big fans of the Pokemon series when we were much younger. In fact, it's over Pokemon that the two of us first bonded all those years ago, back when Red and Blue were released on the Game Boy. We collected the cards, got together to watch the anime, and played Pokemon Stadium on the N64 for hours on end. Simpler times. So, despite now being in our 20s, when Pokemon Go went live the other day, we were both quick to download it. We hadn't really kept up with the series since we were kids, but since the game was focused on the original lineup of Pokemon, it seemed like a fun way to try and recapture some of that childhood innocence, and indulge in a thick slice of nostalgia pie. After playing around individually, we decided to go on a late night Pokemon hunt together. We both had work the next morning, but neither of us are party people. We both had co-workers who'd sometimes come into the office hungover and running on barely any sleep, so this could be our much more nerdy version of that. Talk about walking on the wild side, right? It also made it seem a bit more like an adult activity as well. Not that we had anything to prove to anyone, but still. Anyway, it's around 2:30 AM, and we're driving through the empty streets of our hometown, getting out occasionally, and scooping up as many of the little pocket monsters as possible, and gaining plenty of sweet XP. We'd been out on our hunt for around an hour, and honestly, the game wasn't what I was hoping it would be. But we were both still having fun and in the spirit of things, so at least I'd get a couple of nights' entertainment out of this game. It was around this time that we both noticed the same thing. A lure module had been activated at a nearby Pokestop. For those of you who don't know, when you use a lure in the game, it attracts a bunch of Pokemon to the surrounding area, usually more uncommon ones that you wouldn't typically find in your area otherwise. It also tends to attract other players as well, since everybody benefits from the lure, not just whoever used it. They can only be used at Pokestops, which are usually places of interest, like monuments or landmarks. The Pokestop where this one had been used was in a park nearby. This meant that somebody else was out hunting for Pokemon at 2:30 in the morning. Okay, well, who are we to judge? We were doing the same thing. But why at the park, when they could have just as easily activated it at one of the many other Pokestops in town? That's the part that seems strangest to us. Maybe they knew something we didn't. It's not like we've been playing the game long. We both sort of convinced each other to go down and take a look. A mini adventure in our otherwise very ordinary lives. We arrive and park our car in the tiny parking lot. We stay back for a moment, scanning the park, and though it's a decent size and not amazingly well lit, it seemed at first glance to be completely empty. Figuring that whoever dropped the lure had probably gone home already, we step out of the vehicle. We hang around for 5 minutes or so, and Simon heads off out of eyeshot to catch something. I'm still standing close to the car, too preoccupied with my phone to see where Simon's wandering off to. Then, from behind, the headlights of a car illuminate me. I turn to see that someone's parking up in the lot, close to Simon's car. Within a second of parking up, the driver's side door opens. Hey, kid. Kid? What the hell? You're playing Pokemon Go. Not a question, a statement. My eyes adjust, and it's this lone guy, sort of half standing out of the driver's side door. From what I could tell, he had to be in his 50s, and definitely looked a little rough around the edges. Yeah, I replied. Find any Pokemon yet? Everything about this dude was a little off. His twitchy mannerisms, his eyes that kept darting around. I know some good spots I can show you nearby. Hop in, we can hunt them together. No thanks, man. I'm hunting them with my buddy over there. That didn't seem to register with him. Come on, you can ride shotgun. I'm getting bored playing by myself. My buddy and I are just heading off home, so thanks but no thanks. I felt completely exposed, standing in the park, with this guy's lights shining right on me. Get in, man. There's a great spot not far from here. He tried to convince me a few more times before Simon, who had heard what was going on, made it back. This old dude's face visibly dropped at the sight of Simon. He must have thought I was lying about not being alone. We quickly got to Simon's car, this guy's eyes fixed on us the whole time. Had that been the end of it, this would have just been a freaky, uncomfortable experience. We jump into the car, acting cool on the surface, silently regretting that we'd been stupid enough to come here. Simon turned on his headlights and started to reverse. As the headlights hit the guy's car opposite us, we both saw something that made our blood curdle. A hooded figure rising up from the back seat of the car, behind the passenger side seat. We fucking hightailed it out of the parking lot and back into the well-lit streets. They followed close behind us for a few minutes, forcing us to take the long route back to my place so they couldn't find out where I lived. They eventually gave up on their intimidation tactic and left us alone. We're not sure what this was all about. They'd clearly dropped the lure to attract people. If they wanted to rob us, they could have easily, but they didn't. They were hoping someone would turn up alone. Maybe someone younger, despite how late it was. What they were planning on doing if I got in that car, I have no idea. But the fact that the guy said he was alone, and the dude in the back was making a conscious effort to hide, leads me to believe it was something sinister. We informed the cops about the incident, but I'm not sure how seriously they took us, or even if they fully understood what we were talking about. We gave them the license plate number, and they said they'd look into it. Haven't heard anything from them so far. If you decide to go out hunting for Pokemon in secluded areas, make sure to bring someone with you, especially at night. Or, just go at a reasonable time. Had I not taken Simon along with me, I'm not sure things would have ended as innocuously as they did. I am a 19-year-old female living in rural England. It's pretty much the middle of nowhere. Pokemon Go had just gone live here, and being a total freak for the series, I had to check it out immediately. I've been loving it so far. One feature in the game is that you can use an item called incense to attract more Pokemon. I found out fairly quickly that incense works a lot better on the move. If I stayed around my house while using it, I'd only ever attract the usual Pidgeys and Weedles. But if I used it whilst out jogging, I'd often come across more interesting and varied finds. Since it lasts for 30 minutes after being activated, I'd been using the incense around 10 minutes into my jog, which was when I'd reach these woods which I run through. It's midday, so I'm not too worried as I'm making my way through the heart of the woods by myself, stopping sporadically to catch Abras and Slowpokes and whatnot. This is a hotspot for Pokemon, so my attention is fixed to the screen of my phone, my headphones blocking out all noise around me. That's why I didn't hear him approach. I was interrupted by a tap on my shoulder, which nearly gave me a heart attack. I whip out my earphones and spin to face whoever was there. It's some creepy, sweaty man in his mid-30s, with a scruffy beard and wild hair. He was dressed in that army man, cheap camo jacket and trouser getup, almost like he was trying to blend into the surroundings. Instinctively, I freeze up. My mind goes blank, and all I can do is stare back at him. He doesn't say anything at first, his face doing all the talking. The intensity of his gaze was haunting. His eyes opened so wide, it was almost like he didn't have eyelids. Then, completely emotionless, in an almost robotic fashion, he says, "Give me a reason not to kill you." I can barely react. All I want to do is sprint the hell away, but my legs are set to hibernate mode. I can't even respond verbally to him. "No one would ever know it was me," he says, but not like it was directed at me, but to himself, like he was really contemplating it, or convincing himself. Adrenaline was starting to take effect now, and I was pretty much ready to kick this guy in the sweet spot and make my escape. But after the most uncomfortable silence in existence, he turned around and calmly walked back through the thicket. I tear up with fear as this guy disappears out of sight, and then sprinted home as fast as my legs could propel me. Thankfully, he didn't follow. What worries me is that this is like future serial killer type of behavior. It felt like I was some sort of test run or something, like he was gauging my reaction. Trust me when I say that these woods are literally in the middle of nowhere, secluded to the point where I don't think I've ever seen another soul in there before this encounter. I haven't been out jogging since this happened, but when I do, I'll definitely be changing my route. This whole thing wasn't the game's fault, and I could have run into this weirdo anywhere. But it does go to show that you should always pay attention to your surroundings when playing the game. It's easy to let your guard down when your face is immersed in your smartphone and your headphones are in. So, there you have it. These aren't my personal experiences, so let me know what you make of them in the comments below. And hey, while you're down there, why not do some naughty things with that like button? Stay spooky. And remember, the best things happen in the dark.